At JFK Airport, the early morning light spilled across the polished floors, turning the bustling terminal into a mosaic of hurried footsteps and restless voices. Emily Carter, 7 months pregnant and carrying the weight of exhaustion in her slow breaths, pushed her son's stroller through the crowd. Her little boy, barely 1 year old, clutched a soft gray blanket and blinked at the world with innocent eyes, unaware of the storm forming only a few feet away. Emily whispered soothing words to him, her voice thin but steady, trying to hold on to whatever calm she still had. Behind her, Jonathan Reed's Mercedes black carry-on rolled sharply across the floor, dragged by a hand that looked like it had never known softness. His jaw was tight, his shoulders drawn back, his eyes burning with something cold and dangerous. Emily had seen that look before, but never in public, never where escape was possible. Next to him walked Vanessa Hale, impeccably dressed, holding her iPhone like it was a weapon waiting to be fired. Jonathan's attention flicked from the screen she showed him to Emily's back, and each glance sharpened his anger. Emily sensed the tension before she heard it. A shadow moved too quickly behind her, footsteps pressing closer, breath rattling with rage. She turned just enough to see Jonathan's face twisted, dark, unlike the man she once trusted. The terminal noise dimmed in her ears. Her heart tightened. Something terrible was about to happen. Jonathan stepped directly in front of the stroller, blocking her path. "So this is what you've been hiding?" he hissed, thrusting his phone toward her face. On the screen was a blurred video, grainy and obviously fake, but the kind meant to wound. Emily's breath caught. "Jonathan, that's not real. I didn't." "Liar," he snapped. Vanessa placed a hand on his arm, pretending to calm him while smiling with poisoned sweetness. "She's been playing you, Jonathan. I warned you." Travelers slowed around them, sensing the spark of danger. Emily's son whimpered, kicking his small legs. Emily reached for him, but Jonathan grabbed her wrist too hard, too fast. Pain shot up her arm. She gasped, stumbling slightly from the pressure. "I trusted you, Emily," he growled. "But you made a fool out of me." "Please," she whispered. "Not here. Our son is watching." But Jonathan was past hearing. Vanessa's whisper curled into his ear, feeding the fire. He yanked Emily's arm upward with brutal force. The crack echoed louder than the airport announcements. Emily's legs buckled. Her son screamed. People around them froze. Emily collapsed to her knees, clutching her belly with her free hand, terror crashing through her like ice. The world tilted, her vision blurred. She could barely breathe. Jonathan stood over her, chest heaving, unaware or unwilling to care that she was pregnant with his second child. Vanessa stepped back, suddenly nervous, glancing around as phones lifted and cameras focused. Voices rippled through the terminal as more travelers stopped, unsure whether to intervene or retreat. A woman near the security line covered her mouth, whispering for someone to call the police. A TSA officer hesitated, radio in hand, while an elderly man stepped protectively in front of the stroller, shielding the crying child. Emily felt the cold floor pressing against her knees, each second stretching painfully inside. Emily lifted her eyes, trembling, as the figure stepped into view. And the moment she recognized who it was, the entire direction of her fate shifted. Emily had never imagined her life would unravel so publicly. As she knelt on the cold airport floor, pain burning through her arm, her mind slipped back to the quiet beginnings of the life she once believed in. Before she became Emily Reed, she was Emily Carter, a girl from a modest Michigan town, raised by parents who taught her that kindness was strength and loyalty was love. Her mother died when Emily was in college, and her father followed a year later, leaving her with a sense of aloneness she never spoke about. She had been a Harvard student, studying logistics and global supply systems, a field she loved for its clarity, structure, and honesty. Numbers didn't lie. People sometimes did. Still, she believed the best in others. That faith had shaped her whole life. Then came Jonathan, charming, brilliant, magnetic. He walked into her world during a career fair, while she stood in line holding a resume printed on a campus library printer. He seemed like a man who saw her really saw her. Within months they were inseparable. He promised her the world, and for a while he gave it. Weekend drives to Boston, late-night dinners under city lights, a sense of security she had not felt since childhood. She left Harvard after her father's passing, telling herself she would return in a year. But the year never came back. Jonathan's business grew, his demands grew, and her world shrank to match his. At first, she didn't realize how slowly he was carving pieces out of her life. He told her not to work, saying pregnancy required rest. He changed the password on their joint bank account, saying he would handle everything. He moved them into a penthouse so high above Manhattan that Emily felt detached from the ground itself. When she became a mother, her world narrowed again, this time around her son, a little boy with his father's eyes and her quiet smile. She thought Jonathan would soften, but instead he grew colder. Late nights, secret calls, a perfume she didn't own lingering on his shirts. Then Vanessa appeared, sharp, confident, always standing too close to Jonathan. Emily tried to believe the best, but the distance between them grew wider every day. Now, in the airport chaos, with her arm throbbing and her son crying, she understood the truth she had avoided for years. Jonathan had never protected her. He had isolated her, and Vanessa had been waiting for this exact moment. Emily lifted her head, breathing through pain and fear, as a new figure cut through the crowd, moving with purpose, eyes locked on her. The woman's heels clicked sharply against the tile, her expression a mix of anger and concern. Emily blinked, struggling to place the face. There was something familiar in the woman's eyes, a warmth buried beneath the sternness. The crowd shifted, murmuring as she approached. Jonathan straightened, trying to mask his rage, but the woman didn't look at him. She knelt beside Emily, her voice low yet steady. "Emily, can you hear me? It's all right. I'm here now." Emily's eyes filled with confusion. How did this woman know her name? Why did her voice sound like a memory from years ago, gentle, yet undeniably protective? Jonathan's jaw tensed. "Olivia," he snapped. "This isn't your—" But Emily barely heard him, her pulse quickening as she realized the truth forming in her mind. Everything is about to change. Jonathan Reed had spent years building an image that made men fear him and made investors trust him. Power wasn't just something he held, it was something he wore. Every morning began with discipline, a strict workout, a flawless, tailored suit, and the signature Mont Blanc pen tucked in his jacket pocket like a badge of dominance. By the time he entered the Reed Global Holdings Tower on Park Avenue, he was already a storm that no one dared interrupt. In the corporate world, Jonathan was known for his sharp instincts and ruthless precision. The man could dismantle a deal with a single sentence, or close one with an icy smile. He commanded boardrooms with confidence, and for years, the world admired him for it. But underneath that polished exterior was someone who feared being questioned, feared imperfection, feared losing control. And control was the only language he understood. Emily had seen glimpses of that darkness long before anyone else. He had moments where kindness looked real. Moments where he would hold their son gently. Moments where he kissed her forehead while she slept. Those glimpses made her believe he was still the man she fell in love with. But every year his gentleness faded a little more, replaced by something sharp, something cold. When Vanessa entered the picture, the last of that gentleness evaporated. At Reed Global, Vanessa stood out immediately ambitious, calculated, and hungry for influence. Jonathan valued loyalty, but he valued admiration even more. Vanessa gave him both, wrapped in flattery, clever words, and a willingness to do whatever it took to keep his attention. She read his moods, predicted his needs, and whispered into his ear at just the right moments. She made him feel invincible, even when his leadership was slipping under the surface. The truth was, Jonathan's empire wasn't as steady as he pretended. A hidden financial discrepancy had been buried months ago, and the only person who had accidentally stumbled across the suspicious documents was Emily. She had asked Jonathan about them gently, thinking she misunderstood. He reacted with cold fury, saying she was too fragile to understand real business. That night was the first time she saw fear behind his anger. Jonathan's world depended on silence, her silence, and Vanessa knew it. She played into his paranoia, feeding him doubts about Emily's loyalty, twisting every innocent action into something suspicious. The more Jonathan listened, the tighter he gripped control. He convinced himself that Emily was the weak link, the one who could ruin him, the one who needed to be watched. He didn't know Emily came from a world of discipline and intelligence. He didn't know she once dreamed of being a logistics strategist, a woman who could solve global supply chain systems with clarity and logic. He didn't know how many times she had covered for him quietly, smoothing over mistakes in his schedule or finding missing files he forgot to mention. He didn't realize the quiet strength inside her, but Olivia Brooks did. As Emily lay broken on the airport floor just minutes earlier, Olivia's mind replayed a memory from years ago, a memory Jonathan had no idea existed. She remembered meeting a bright young Harvard student named Emily Carter at a logistics seminar, remembered the thoughtful questions she asked, remembered thinking, that girl is going to change the world someday. She had even spoken with Emily's mother afterward, who proudly shared that Emily was her greatest joy. Now, standing in the present, seeing Jonathan's hand still curled in anger, Olivia felt something inside her snap. Jonathan, unaware of the storm gathering behind Olivia's calm expression, straightened his suit and stepped forward, trying to reclaim control of the scene. But Olivia's eyes never left Emily. "Jonathan," she said quietly, "you've just made the biggest mistake of your life." Jonathan froze, unsure why her voice suddenly carried the weight of a final verdict. And in that split second, he realized Olivia wasn't here to protect him at all. Vanessa Hale had perfected the art of appearing harmless. Behind her polished smile and gentle voice was a woman who learned early in life that survival belonged to the clever, not the kind. Born in Phoenix, raised in a string of foster homes, she understood two truths better than anyone. Power came from proximity, and trust was a weakness she could use against others. By the time she reached 30, Vanessa had become an expert at slipping into the lives of powerful men, learning their flaws, and bending them to her advantage. When she first entered Reed Global as an executive assistant, she was nearly invisible, quiet, efficient, diligent. But invisibility was only a disguise. She studied Jonathan the way a hunter studies prey. She watched how he reacted when challenged, how his ego swelled when praised, how he softened when a woman admired his success. Within months, she mastered the formula that opened the door into his private life. Jonathan believed Vanessa respected him. Respected wasn't the word she worshipped the idea of his power. She saw him not as a man, but as a stepping stone. Every lingering glance, every soft laugh at his dry jokes, every "you're brilliant, Jonathan," was part of a script she wrote long before he ever noticed her. Once he finally allowed her into his circle, her real mission began. Unknown to Jonathan, Vanessa wasn't acting alone. A faction of Reed Global investors, men older, richer, and far more dangerous than Jonathan, had been quietly planning to push him out. His financial irregularities gave them leverage, but they needed someone on the inside to destabilize him further. Someone willing to manipulate his marriage, heighten his paranoia, destroy his focus. Vanessa, with her ambition and lack of conscience, was perfect. Her orders were simple: isolate Jonathan, weaken him emotionally, and collect proof of his misconduct. But Vanessa had her own intentions. She didn't just want Jonathan removed, she wanted to replace him. If she could turn Jonathan into a puppet, even temporarily, she could climb higher than any assistant had ever climbed. Emily was in her way. Emily, with her sincerity. Emily, with her quiet grace. Emily, who Jonathan once adored. Vanessa hated her before she even met her. And when she realized Emily had discovered the documents, the ones proving Jonathan's misuse of funds, Vanessa panicked. Emily wasn't just in the way. Emily was dangerous. So Vanessa did what she always did. She twisted the truth. She fed Jonathan lies, each one carefully crafted to seed doubt and anger. She hinted Emily was hiding something. She mentioned unfamiliar names. She dropped subtle accusations. She sent Jonathan evidence. She fabricated emails that Emily never wrote, photos she doctored, messages taken out of context. Slowly, Jonathan changed. His temper sharpened, his trust cracked, and his love for Emily bent under the weight of suspicion. The airport confrontation was supposed to be a scare tactic, not a public disaster. Vanessa never imagined Jonathan would become so unhinged. She didn't anticipate Olivia would appear. and she certainly didn't expect dozens of witnesses filming everything. As she stood in the terminal, her heart raced not with guilt, but with fear. She had gone too far. The investors wouldn't protect her if this spiraled out of control. She needed Jonathan to calm down. She needed Emily silent. She needed time to erase the evidence before anyone connected the dots. But when Olivia knelt beside Emily, Vanessa realized the situation was slipping through her fingers. Olivia Brooks wasn't just another executive. She was the one person Vanessa could never manipulate, never deceive, never charm. Vanessa's pulse pounded as she watched Olivia rise to her full height, her gaze fixed on Jonathan with unmistakable authority. For the first time, Vanessa felt something unfamiliar: panic, sharp and cold, spreading through her chest. Olivia turned her head slightly, eyes narrowing at Vanessa. And in that piercing silence, Vanessa understood something she had never feared before. The game was no longer hers to control. The hours before the airport incident had been building like pressure behind a locked door, and no one sensed it more clearly than Vanessa. She had spent the entire morning weaving the last pieces of her trap, pushing Jonathan's insecurities until they became a weapon sharp enough to break anyone in their path. It began with a lie whispered over coffee, a lie designed to ignite the darkest corner of Jonathan's temper. Vanessa had shown him a doctored message, claiming Emily had been meeting another man near Central Park, a story carefully built from fragments Jonathan was already insecure about. Jonathan didn't question it because Vanessa spoke with precision, offering concern wrapped in poison, telling him she simply wanted to protect him from betrayal. By the time they reached the penthouse earlier that morning, Jonathan's temper had already begun to boil, and Vanessa only needed to nudge him further. She pointed out Emily's slow replies, her tired expression, her distance, twisting every innocent detail into something darker. What Vanessa didn't expect was how completely Jonathan would lose control once the seed of suspicion was planted. She had planned chaos, but not public spectacle. As they drove toward JFK Airport, Vanessa kept feeding Jonathan small sparks of anger, knowing he would ignite the rest himself. She mentioned seeing Emily texting someone late at night, even though she fabricated the entire memory. She hinted that Emily planned to leave him, taking the child and whatever pieces of his reputation she could reach. With each word, Jonathan's grip on reality thinned, and Vanessa watched with satisfaction as he tightened his control over the world around him. But even Vanessa underestimated the depth of Jonathan's fear of losing power. When he confronted Emily at the terminal, Vanessa felt the plan slipping from her hands the moment he grabbed his wife's wrist with that violent rage. She wanted drama, not witnesses capturing every second. As the crowd formed, Vanessa's stomach tightened, realizing she no longer controlled the outcome. Then Olivia appeared, cutting through the chaos with a presence Vanessa had always feared from a distance. Vanessa knew Olivia's reputation, knew she was sharp, ethical, and impossibly hard to manipulate, which made her dangerous. Vanessa stepped closer, pretending concern, but Olivia's eyes caught her like a blade, sensing the rot behind her polished mask. In that moment, Vanessa realized her clever lies had reached their limit, and she could not twist her way out of what Jonathan had just done. She watched Olivia kneel beside Emily, watched the crowd lean closer, watched Jonathan stumble through his excuses, and she knew the power had shifted. The trap Vanessa had built for Emily had sprung back onto Jonathan, and the investors backing her would not tolerate this level of public exposure. She tried to catch Jonathan's eye, hoping to redirect him, but he was too far gone, too wrapped in his own fury to notice her silent panic. For the first time, she feared she had miscalculated, and mistakes in her world were never forgiven. Emily's trembling form, the crying child, and Olivia's steady composure created an image Vanessa understood instantly would spread like wildfire once the recording surfaced. She felt the ground shift beneath her ambitions, realizing the scenario she engineered had transformed into a weapon pointed back at her. Vanessa took a small step backward, trying to hide her fear, but Olivia's sharp glance followed her like a spotlight, exposing everything she hoped to bury. In that fragile instant, Vanessa understood she no longer controlled Jonathan, the narrative, or her fragile place inside Reed Global. Now, Jonathan's rage didn't fade after he snapped Emily's arm. It intensified, as if public humiliation only fueled something twisted inside him. People gasped, some shouted, and others froze in shock. The sound of a child crying cut through the air, sharp enough to rattle even the busiest traveler. Emily tried to cradle her broken arm, but the pain radiated so violently that her vision blurred. Her knees trembled as she tried to lift herself, terrified of collapsing fully while carrying a child inside her. Her son's cries pierced her heart, but she couldn't reach him. She couldn't even lift her hand. Jonathan loomed over her, chest rising and falling like an animal that had forgotten it was human. "You embarrassed me," he growled, ignoring the cameras pointed at him. "You made me look like a fool. Don't you dare pretend you're the victim here." Emily's lips parted, but the words caught in her throat. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and she fought to stay conscious. She wanted to protect her baby. She wanted to protect her son. She needed to breathe, but fear squeezed her chest until breathing felt impossible. A TSA officer finally stepped forward, raising a hand. "Sir, I need you to step back." Jonathan snapped toward him. "This is my wife. Mind your business." "Sir," the officer repeated firmly, "you need to move away from her." Jonathan stepped forward as if ready to fight, but Olivia's voice cut through the chaos. "Jonathan." Calm, controlled, dangerous. The sound stopped him mid-stride. Emily blinked, forcing her eyes open as Olivia approached, radiating authority. But Emily's body was shutting down faster than she could fight it. Her arm throbbed. Her abdomen tightened with a strange, terrifying pressure. A wave of nausea rushed upward. She felt her heartbeat in her throat, loud and frantic. "Emily, look at me," Olivia said, kneeling beside her. "Are you feeling contractions?" Emily tried to answer, but the words tangled into a soft groan. Another sharp pain twisted through her belly. "Something's wrong," she whispered. "The baby." Olivia's face hardened with urgency. She placed a steadying hand on Emily's back. "You need medical help right now." Vanessa stepped closer, panic flickering behind her eyes. "She's faking it," she blurted, grasping at control. "She always—" Olivia straightened slowly, turning her full focus on Vanessa with a look that made the terminal fall silent. "Not." Another word. Vanessa froze. Jonathan forced a laugh, brittle and out of breath. "She's fine. She's dramatic. She does this to get attention." But his voice trembled. The cracks were showing. Emily felt another wave of pain slam through her, and her breath hitched. Her skin turned pale. The room tilted. "The baby." "Please." Those words broke something in the crowd. Suddenly, a woman rushed forward. "I'm a nurse. She's in distress." Another traveler shouted for an ambulance. Someone grabbed blankets. A man moved the stroller away so Emily wouldn't accidentally knock it over. Strangers, complete strangers, stepped in where her own husband would not. Jonathan tried to push past them. "Move. She's my wife. I'll handle it." But Olivia stepped in front of him, tall and unwavering. "You've done enough." And Jonathan saw at the look in Olivia's eyes that told him she wasn't just another executive, she was a threat, a big one. Emily coughed, breath shallow. Her vision darkened at the edges. Olivia lowered herself again, steady and gentle, touching Emily's cheek. "Stay with me, sweetheart. Help is coming." Emily fought to focus, fought to breathe, fought to stay present for her children. But her body was failing. Cold sweat gathered on her forehead. The terminal lights blurred into streaks. The sound of sirens approached outside. Relief and fear knotted together inside her chest. She had seconds left before everything slipped away. And as Jonathan tried to force his way closer, the nurse beside Emily lifted her voice sharply. "Don't touch her. She's losing consciousness." Emily's eyes fluttered once, twice, and then everything faded into darkness. Emily drifted in and out of consciousness as paramedics rushed her toward the emergency doors, the cold air from the ambulance bay washing over her pale skin. Olivia stayed close, her voice steady, keeping Emily anchored to reality. Behind them, Jonathan tried to push through the crowd, but TSA officers blocked him. Vanessa hovered beside him, eyes darting anxiously as the situation spiraled out of control. Inside the ambulance, monitors beeped sharply while a paramedic checked Emily's vitals. Her blood pressure was dropping, her breathing shallow, and a tightening sensation pulsed dangerously across her abdomen. "She's showing symptoms of preterm distress," the medic warned. Olivia gripped the rail beside the stretcher. Emily forced her eyes open for a moment, whispering, "Don't let him near me." Olivia nodded, her heart tightening. Back inside the terminal, Jonathan's anger shifted into panic. "She's exaggerating," he shouted, though his voice cracked, betraying his fear. The spectators who had filmed the scene now whispered angrily, replaying the footage on their screens. A father holding his daughter glared at Jonathan, while a group of teens muttered about calling authorities. For the first time, Jonathan realized people weren't afraid of him, they were disgusted. Vanessa tugged his sleeve. "We need to leave," she hissed. But Jonathan jerked away. "I have to get to my wife. They're twisting everything. She'll tell them she provoked me." Vanessa flinched. This wasn't the man she thought she controlled. His desperation, raw and unstable, made him unpredictable. Her carefully crafted influence was slipping right through her fingers. Olivia followed the stretcher into the hospital as nurses rushed Emily into an exam room. A doctor quickly examined her arm and abdomen, issuing urgent orders. "She's at risk of preterm labor, and her arm is fractured. We need to stabilize her immediately." Emily whimpered softly when the nurse moved her injured limb. Olivia leaned over her. "You're safe now, sweetheart. Focus on breathing." Meanwhile, Jonathan and Vanessa arrived at the hospital entrance, only to be stopped by security. "Sir, you're not allowed in," an officer announced. "There's an active domestic violence report." Jonathan laughed bitterly. "My wife wouldn't file anything. She knows better." Vanessa's stomach twisted at his words. For the first time, she saw the brutal man behind the charm. While they argued, Olivia spoke privately with the attending physician. "She's pregnant, injured, and terrified," Olivia said. "She can't have him near her." The doctor nodded. "We'll place her under protective status." Olivia exhaled slowly, knowing this was only the beginning. She texted her legal team, telling them to prepare for immediate action. Jonathan paced outside, sweat forming along his hairline. His world was unraveling. "This is all her fault," he muttered. Vanessa moved away slightly, sensing danger in his frantic tone. She tried to distance herself, pretending innocence, but the crowd recognized her. Someone pointed. "That's the woman who egged him on." Vanessa stiffened. Inside the hospital room, Emily regained consciousness briefly. The first face she saw was Olivia's, warm and steady. "You're safe," Olivia said softly. Emily swallowed hard, tears slipping down her cheeks. "He can't hurt you here, I promise." Emily closed her eyes, letting relief wash through her fragile body. As police cars pulled into the hospital parking lot, lights flashing blue across the glass doors, Jonathan straightened in alarm. Officers stepped out with determined expressions. Vanessa backed away slowly. Jonathan lifted his hands defensively. "I didn't do anything." But the crowd's videos told a different story, and the officers knew exactly who he was. And when the lead officer approached, lowering his voice, Jonathan finally understood he was no longer the man calling the shots. Emily lay in the dim hospital room, drifting between pain and exhaustion as nurses moved quietly around her. The soft beeping of monitors echoed through the sterile air, grounding her in the present. Her arm was strapped in a temporary cast, her abdomen wrapped carefully to monitor any signs of early labor. The fluorescent lights above flickered softly, and for the first time in years, she felt a sliver of safety, weak, trembling, terrified but safe. Olivia sat beside her bed, hands clasped, eyes steady. She had refused to leave Emily's side, sensing the lingering fear in every shallow breath the young woman took. When Emily finally stirred, Olivia leaned closer. "You're at St. James," she said gently. "Your baby is stable. Your son is with a nurse in pediatrics. You're not alone." Tears welled in Emily's eyes, not from pain this time, but from the simple comfort of those words. "Thank you," she whispered, voice raw. Her throat ached from crying, from shock, from everything she had been holding in for years. Olivia reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "You're stronger than you think, sweetheart." Meanwhile, Outside the hospital room, the hallway buzzed with tension. Officers questioned witnesses, nurses whispered about the high-profile patient in room 312, and doctors reviewed Emily's scans with furrowed brows. The incident at JFK was already trending online. Videos of Jonathan grabbing Emily, dragging her, shouting clips posted by strangers were circulating with millions of views. Public outrage was building fast. Downstairs, Jonathan's world was collapsing. He sat in a holding area near the ER, surrounded by officers. His expensive shirt was wrinkled, his cufflinks removed, and for the first time in his life, he looked small. A far cry from the powerful CEO who once barked orders across Park Avenue boardrooms. He rubbed his temples, muttering, "She set me up. She's dramatizing. She knows how to manipulate people." But his voice lacked conviction now. Every officer standing nearby had watched the video. His excuses only made him look weaker. Vanessa sat across the waiting room, her leg bouncing anxiously. She avoided eye contact with everyone, especially Jonathan. Her carefully built persona, polished, confident, untouchable, had shattered the moment the cops arrived. She now understood the investors who backed her would not tolerate this level of exposure. Worse, Olivia's presence meant this wasn't just a scandal, it was an existential threat. A nurse approached Jonathan. "Your wife is stable," she said, "but she doesn't want to see you." Jonathan scoffed. "She's confused. I'll talk to her." "No," the nurse replied firmly. "She has protective status. You are not allowed near her." Jonathan's jaw clenched. "You don't understand," the nurse cut him off. "We understand perfectly, Mr. Reed." Upstairs, Emily took a slow breath as another wave of fear crept over her. "He'll come for me," she whispered. "He always does." Olivia placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Not this time. There are officers outside your door. He won't touch you again." Emily's breath trembled. "He won't stop." "Oh, he will," Olivia replied, her voice resolute. "Because now he's not just facing you, he's facing me." Emily blinked, confused. Why do you care so much?" Olivia hesitated, her eyes softening with a memory. "Because I knew your mother," she said quietly. "And I promised her I'd look out for you if life ever became cruel." Emily's breath caught, her heart pounded. You knew her?" Olivia nodded. "And I'm not letting her daughter fight this battle alone." Before Emily could respond, a knock sounded at the door. A nurse peeked in, her expression urgent. Emily's breath caught, her heart pounded. You knew her?" Olivia hesitated, her eyes softening with a memory. "Because I knew your mother," she said quietly. "And I promised her I'd look out for you if life ever became cruel." Olivia nodded. "And I'm not letting her daughter fight this battle alone." "There's someone asking to speak with you," she said cautiously. "He says he has information you need." Emily's breath hitched when the nurse mentioned the man with the recording. For a moment, fear tightened her chest. Another stranger, another unknown face, but Olivia stood, her presence steady as a shield. "I'll speak with him first," she said firmly. Emily nodded, sinking back into the pillows, while the tightening in her abdomen slowly eased. Every movement felt fragile, as if her body were made of thin glass. Emily frowned weakly. "Who?" "I'm a journalist. Investigative. I was at JFK this morning." Olivia studied him closely. "And you filmed everything?" "Not just filmed," Michael replied. "I caught the entire confrontation from the moment Reed grabbed her wrist to when she collapsed, and I didn't post it. Not yet." Olivia exhaled softly. That choice alone marked him different from the thousands who had already shared their clips online. "Why bring it here?" she asked. "Because," Michael said, lowering his voice, "I've been following Reed Global for months. There's something rotten under the surface. I came to JFK to track a different lead, but when I saw what happened," his jaw tightened, "I couldn't walk away." Emily's breath hitched when the nurse mentioned the man with the recording. For a moment, fear tightened her chest. Another stranger, another unknown face, but Olivia stood, her presence steady as a shield. "I'll speak with him first," she said firmly. Emily nodded, sinking back into the pillows while the tightening in her abdomen slowly eased. Every movement felt fragile, as if her body were made of thin glass. And her children, Olivia's eyes sharpened. "Show me." Meanwhile, inside the hospital room, Emily tried to calm her breathing. Every beat of her heart echoed with fear, fear for her baby, fear of Jonathan, fear of the future she didn't know how to face. Her son slept in a small crib beside the bed, his tiny chest rising softly. She reached for his blanket with trembling fingers, letting its warmth ground her. Minutes later, Olivia returned with Michael beside her. Emily stiffened at the unfamiliar face, but Olivia reassured her. "This is Michael. He's the one who filmed the incident." Emily swallowed. You were there?" Michael nodded gently. "Yes. And I saw everything. Not just the violence, his face, his anger, the way he looked at you. I'm sorry you went through that." Something in his tone, quiet, respectful, soothed. A part of Emily she didn't realize was shaking. Olivia pulled a chair close. "Emily, the video is strong evidence. But Michael also has information that could protect you from Jonathan's financial power." Michael stepped forward carefully. "Jonathan has been moving funds illegally. I have emails, internal reports, and witness accounts. If Jonathan tries to discredit you, this will destroy every attempt." Emily felt her breath tremble. "Why help me?" Michael hesitated only a moment. "Because what he did was unforgivable, and because you deserve protection he never gave you." Olivia placed a reassuring hand on Emily's uninjured one. "This is your turning point, sweetheart. You're no longer fighting alone." Emily's eyes glistened. Michael met her eyes steady, compassionate, and for the first time since the nightmare began, Emily felt something unfamiliar breaking through the fear. Hope. Jonathan sat in the hospital's holding area with his elbows pressed against his knees, his fingers tangled in his hair. The murmurs around him grew louder as more officers arrived, their radios crackling with updates. Every few minutes, someone's phone buzzed with a new notification, another repost of the airport video, another wave of public outrage. The world was turning against him faster than he could breathe. He tried to stand, but an officer blocked his path. "Sit down, Mr. Reed. You're not cleared to go anywhere." Jonathan scoffed, his voice fraying. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes," the officer replied flatly. "That's why we're not letting you leave." Vanessa sat several seats away, arms wrapped tightly around herself, as if trying to keep her carefully crafted persona from crumbling. Her phone refused to stop vibrating messages from investors, from coworkers, from unknown numbers demanding answers. Panic flashed across her face with every new notification. "Jonathan," she hissed under her breath. "We need to get ahead of this. We need a statement. Something to make Emily look." "Shut up," he snapped, eyes blazing. "You started this." Vanessa froze, her lips parting. For months, she had manipulated his emotions with ease. But now, for the first time, Jonathan wasn't looking at her with admiration or trust. He was looking at her like she was disposable. "Don't blame me," she whispered. "You're the one who..." "Who what?" Jonathan hissed. "Who believed you? Who listened to your lies? Who trusted you?" Vanessa flinched. That word, trusted, it was the first crack in the armor she hid behind. But before she could respond, 2 officers approached. "Jonathan Reed," one announced. "We're escorting you to an interview room for questioning. You are not under arrest at this moment, but you are being detained pending investigation." Jonathan's head snapped up. "Detained? For what?" Jonathan's head snapped up. "Detained? For what?" Olivia motioned for him to follow her down the hall. "Emily is fragile. She doesn't need pressure right now." Michael nodded quickly. "I'm not here to interview her. I'm here to help her." Those words surprised Olivia enough to slow her steps. "Help her how?" Michael opened his camera bag and pulled out a hard drive. "This isn't just a video. It's evidence. And I think what Jonathan did today connects to illegal activity inside Reed Global. If this goes to the right people, it can protect her." Olivia motioned for him to follow her down the hall. Emily is fragile. She doesn't need pressure right now. Michael nodded quickly. I'm not here to interview her. I'm here to help her. Those words surprised Olivia enough to slow her steps. Help her how? Michael opened his camera bag and pulled out a hard drive. This isn't just a video, it's evidence. And I think what Jonathan did today connects to illegal activity inside Reed Global. If this goes to the right people, it can protect her. Emily, Olivia began gently, Jonathan is trying to spin what happened today. He's calling his legal team, claiming you fell, claiming he was trying to help you, even claiming you may have harmed yourself. Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. He said that? Olivia nodded. It's classic deflection. But this time, he can't cover anything up. Not with witnesses. Not with Michael's footage. Not with the hospital report. Emily looked down at her injured arm, wrapped securely in a temporary cast. I don't want him near my children again, she whispered. I want him out of our lives. And he will be, Olivia promised. But we have to act first. Michael stepped forward, holding a folder filled with printed documents. Jonathan is already trying to contain the fallout. His assistant made calls to a PR company before the police stopped him. They're planning to paint you unstable, emotional, overwhelmed. Emily felt her stomach drop. Why would they do that? Why am I always the one they try to break? Michael's expression softened. Because men like him think power can rewrite truth. But this time, he underestimated how much evidence he left behind. Olivia tapped the folder. We're filing for an emergency protective order. By the time Jonathan finishes his interview with the police, he won't be allowed within 100 feet of you or your children. Emily blinked hard, letting the relief wash over her. Downstairs, Jonathan's questioning was not going well. The detective showed him the slowed, stabilized footage Michael had captured. Every frame painted him in a darker light, his grip, the twist of Emily's arm, the expression on his face. That video is manipulated, Jonathan insisted desperately. No, the detective replied. This is the original footage. Clean. Unedited. Jonathan's pulse hammered in his ears. Vanessa, left alone in the waiting room, stared at the floor as voices around her whispered words like jail, investigation, domestic violence. Her carefully maintained world was collapsing too, but for entirely different reasons. Upstairs, Emily closed her eyes, exhausted, but finally beginning to feel a fragile sense of safety. Olivia stood and placed a gentle hand on Emily's shoulder. Rest, sweetheart. This is the moment everything starts shifting in your favor. Emily exhaled shakily, because for the first time, she wasn't the one being cornered. Jonathan was. Olivia walked down the quiet hospital corridor, her heels tapping rhythmically against the polished floor. With every step, her determination sharpened. She had spent years navigating corporate wars, silencing greedy board members, and cleaning up scandals behind closed doors, but nothing compared to the fury ignited inside her the moment she saw Jonathan standing over Emily at the airport. This wasn't business. This was personal, and she was going to dismantle every piece of the monster he had become. She entered a small consultation room where two senior investigators waited with laptops open. They had already reviewed some of the footage, but Olivia carried something far more damaging. She placed Michael's folder on the table and pushed it toward them. This is internal documentation from Reed Global, she said. Financial discrepancies, unauthorized transfers, cover-ups, and Emily discovered the first irregularities months ago. The lead investigator lifted a brow. How did she get access to these? She didn't go looking, Olivia replied. She stumbled on them, and Jonathan panicked. That's when the manipulation began. The investigator nodded slowly. This strengthens the domestic violence case. Shows motive. It does more than that, Olivia said. It shows a pattern. He isolated her, controlled her finances, sabotaged her education, and used emotional manipulation to keep her dependent. This wasn't one moment of rage. This was a system he built. The second investigator jotted notes. If these files check out, the financial crimes alone could put him away for years. Olivia folded her arms. Good. Because Emily deserves a life free from him. Meanwhile, In the holding area downstairs, Jonathan slammed his fist against the table. "I want my lawyer, now," he barked. The detective across from him didn't flinch. "Your lawyer is on the way," he replied, "but shouting won't make him appear faster." Jonathan glared, chest rising with fury. "Do you have any idea what this will do to my company?" "That's not our concern," the detective said calmly. "Our concern is the woman you assaulted." Jonathan scoffed. "She's dramatic. She always has been." The detective pressed a button on his laptop. The video from Michael filled the screen again, Emily falling to her knees, her son screaming, Jonathan standing over her with rage in his eyes. Jonathan looked away. Upstairs, Vanessa paced the waiting room, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles whitened. Messages from the investors who once backed her flashed across the screen. "What have you done? Fix this immediately. Your involvement will not be tolerated." She swallowed hard. Losing Jonathan was one thing. Losing the investors' protection meant she could be exposed, fired, or worse. She needed control back, fast. But Olivia didn't give her that chance. She approached with 2 security officers at her side. "Miss Hale," Olivia said evenly, "we need to speak with you." Vanessa stiffened. "About what?" "The footage," Olivia replied. "And your role in provoking Jonathan this morning." Vanessa's face drained of color. "I didn't provoke anything. I was trying to calm him." Olivia lifted a brow. "We have witnesses who heard you feeding him accusations. You were seen whispering into his ear right before he attacked Emily." Vanessa's pulse raced. "I didn't. I was Jonathan misunderstood." "One more lie," Olivia warned, stepping closer, "and you'll walk out of here in handcuffs." Vanessa froze. Olivia held her gaze. "Now, tell me the truth. Why were you pushing him toward Emily? And who else is involved?" Vanessa's pulse raced. "I didn't. I was Jonathan misunderstood." Meanwhile, back in the hospital room, Emily tried to sit up, wincing as pain pressed through her fractured arm. Michael stepped forward instantly. "Careful," he murmured. "Let me help." Emily looked at him, unsure why his gentleness felt so unfamiliar and so shocking. Her voice was soft. "Thank you for everything you're doing." Michael shook his head. "I'm not doing this for a story. I'm doing this because you didn't deserve what happened, and you're not alone in this fight." Emily felt emotion swell in her chest. For years, she hadn't heard those words from anyone, not even family. She blinked away tears. Olivia returned a moment later, her expression a mix of relief and resolve. "Emily," she said, placing a hand on her shoulder, "everything is moving fast, and now we have enough to expose Jonathan completely." Emily's breath trembled. "What happens now?" Olivia leaned closer, her voice steady and fierce. "Now, sweetheart, we take him down." Emily sat propped against her pillows, the dim hospital lighting painting soft shadows across her exhausted face. Her body ached, but her mind shaken, terrified. Unraveling was sharper than it had been in years. Trauma had a way of breaking people, but in Emily's case, it forced her eyes open to something she had ignored for far too long. The truth about Jonathan, the truth about her marriage, and the truth about herself. Olivia pulled a chair beside the bed, her expression thoughtful. "Emily," she began gently, "I need to ask you something important. What exactly did you see in Jonathan's files? You mentioned noticing strange numbers before." Emily's breath hitched. She remembered it clearly, the night she had accidentally opened a folder on Jonathan's laptop while searching for a tax document. At first, the numbers didn't mean much. Then patterns started emerging, transfers to offshore accounts, undisclosed vendors, missing signatures, names she didn't recognize. The kind of financial shadows that meant one thing: fraud. "Jonathan said I misread everything," Emily whispered. "He made me doubt myself. He said I was confused, emotional, that I wasn't thinking clearly." She swallowed hard. "But I know what I saw. He was hiding something big." Olivia nodded slowly. "And that's exactly why he started isolating you. You were a threat." Emily hadn't expected the words to sting, but they did. A threat. To him. To his empire. To the lies he'd built. Suddenly, So many moments made sense, his controlling tone, the way he dismissed her questions, the sudden possessiveness when she became pregnant again. Olivia reached into her briefcase and pulled out a printed document. "This," she said, placing it gently in Emily's lap, "is a forensic copy of the folder from your laptop backup." Emily's breath caught. "You found it?" Olivia nodded slowly. "And that's exactly why he started isolating you. You were a threat." Emily ran her fingers across the pages, her pulse trembling. Columns of numbers, signatures she recognized, names she didn't. There was no mistaking it. These weren't clerical mistakes. These were crimes. Downstairs, Jonathan sat in the interview room, his frustration boiling. He slammed his palm on the table. "You can't keep me here. Those files aren't what you think. She doesn't understand them. She's not trained." The detective leaned forward calmly. "Actually, she's trained in logistics and data analysis, Harvard-educated. Surprising she knows more than you assumed." Jonathan froze. Back upstairs, Emily stared at the documents, memories flooding back. Vanessa's fake sweetness, Jonathan's sudden temper swings, the night she found the folder. The argument, the bruising grip on her wrist when she questioned the missing funds. His apology the next morning, cold, mechanical, empty. Olivia watched her carefully. "Sweetheart, you didn't misunderstand anything. Jonathan was laundering money through shell accounts, millions. And these records are enough to bury him." Emily pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. "I didn't want any of this. I just wanted peace. I wanted a family." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why did he treat me like an enemy?" "Because you were the only person who could expose him," Olivia answered gently. "And he knew it." The door opened softly. Michael stepped inside, holding his laptop. "I have something," he said, glancing between the two women. "Something big." He placed the laptop on Emily's table and pressed play. It was security footage Jonathan and Vanessa in a corner of the office weeks earlier. Vanessa whispering. Jonathan nodding nervously. A brief exchange of envelopes. Vanessa passing him a USB drive. Emily covered her mouth. He planned everything." Michael nodded. "They weren't just manipulating you emotionally. They were conspiring to destroy the files you found." Olivia's jaw tightened. "And now we have the proof." Emily felt something shift inside her, not fear, not anger, but clarity. A quiet realization that the woman she used to be no longer existed. The Emily who doubted herself, who stayed silent, who accepted pain because she hoped things would change, that Emily was fading. A new version was beginning to breathe. Michael watched her, his voice gentle. "This evidence isn't just enough to protect you. It's enough to bring him down." Emily lifted her eyes, strength flickering in them for the first time. "Then we use it." Olivia smiled softly, proud and fierce. "We will, and Jonathan won't see it coming." Emily exhaled, slow and steady. She wasn't powerless anymore. And Jonathan's reign of control? It was about to end. She wasn't powerless anymore. She shifted upright slowly, one hand resting over her belly. Her baby moved a small flutter, a quiet reassurance that they were both still here, still fighting. She closed her eyes, letting a tear slip down her cheek. "We're okay," she whispered. "We're going to be okay." A soft knock sounded at the door. Michael stepped inside, carrying 2 cups of warm tea. His presence was calm, grounded, the opposite of the chaos she had survived. "I didn't know what you preferred," he said, offering a cup, "so I brought chamomile. Helps with stress." Emily blinked in surprise. "Thank you," she murmured. "That's thoughtful." Michael smiled gently. "You've been through hell, Emily. The least I can do is help steady the ground under your feet." She studied him for a moment, the sincerity in his eyes, the way he seemed to look at her without judgment, without pity, just humanity. She wasn't used to that. Jonathan's love had always come with terms, conditions, rules. Michael offered nothing but presence. Before she could speak, Olivia entered, carrying a stack of legal documents. Her expression was firm but warm. "You look stronger," she said, pulling up a chair. "How are you feeling?" "Different," Emily admitted. "Scared, But, clear, Olivia nodded. Good. Because we have decisions to make. Emily inhaled deeply. I'm ready. They spent the next hour reviewing everything: protective orders, emergency custody filings, evidence packets, witness statements. For the first time, Emily wasn't overwhelmed by the paperwork. She felt anchored, empowered. Every page she signed felt like reclaiming a piece of herself Jonathan had stolen. But the real shift came when Olivia handed her a manila envelope. Inside is your official statement, Olivia said gently. You can read it before you sign, or I can walk you through it. Emily opened the envelope. Her own words stared back at her, the truth she had been too afraid to voice for years. The financial manipulation, the emotional abuse, the attempts to isolate her, the threats disguised as apologies, the growing fear she had tried to ignore. Her throat tightened. I didn't realize how long I've been living like this, she whispered. Olivia placed a steady hand over hers. That's what survival looks like. You did what you had to do. But now, you're choosing something different. And that's strength. Emily nodded, signing her name with trembling determination. After Olivia stepped out to make calls, Michael lingered by the window. Emily watched him, sensing something thoughtful behind his calm exterior. You're very kind, she said quietly. He turned, surprised. Kindness shouldn't be rare, Emily. She swallowed. It's been rare in my life. Michael's expression softened, the weight of her words settling between them. He stepped closer but kept a respectful distance. You don't have to rush anything. Healing doesn't come overnight. But if you ever need someone to talk to, someone who's not involved in courtrooms and investigations, I'm here. Emily looked down, her eyes stinging. Why? She whispered. You don't even know me. Michael hesitated, choosing his words carefully. I know what it looks like when someone is fighting alone. I've seen it in my work. I've lived it in my own past. And I saw you, Emily. Not just the woman who fell at the airport. The woman who stood up by signing those papers today. Emily's breath trembled. Something inside her, silent for years, stirred. Not love, not hope. Something simpler. The belief that maybe, just maybe, she deserved tenderness. Before she could respond, a nurse entered to check her vitals. Michael stepped back, giving her space. But as he turned to leave, his eyes met hers once more. And in that small, unspoken moment, Emily realized something profound. She wasn't rebuilding her life alone. She was rebuilding it with people who wanted nothing from her except to see her rise. And rise she would. Emily woke the next morning to a different kind of silence, one that didn't feel heavy or suffocating. It felt like the world was holding its breath for her, waiting to see what she would choose next. The sun pushed gently through the curtains, painting her room with a soft gold glow. Her arms still ached, her body still tired, but something inside her had shifted. She no longer felt like a woman clinging to survival. She felt like someone stepping toward something new. A nurse entered to check on her vitals. Your numbers look better today, she said with a warm smile. The baby's heartbeat is steady. You're stabilizing. Emily breathed out a quiet sigh of relief. It was the first good news she'd allowed herself to believe in. Minutes later, Olivia walked in carrying a sleek garment bag and a calm confidence that filled the room. You have a meeting today, she announced. Emily blinked. A meeting? With who? With the lawyer I called in, Olivia said. A family law heavyweight. And she specifically asked to meet you in person. Emily shifted uncertainly. But I look like a survivor, Olivia said firmly. And survivors don't need to apologize for how they look. Before Emily could protest, Olivia unzipped the garment bag. Inside hung a soft navy maternity dress, simple, elegant, comfortable, suitable for someone who needed to feel human again. Emily touched the fabric gently. It's beautiful. But Olivia, I don't know if I can. You can, Olivia interrupted. And you will. Today is about stepping into a version of yourself Jonathan never let you see. A knock sounded at the door. A woman entered, tall, poised, with silver streaks in her dark hair and the presence of someone used to winning. Emily recognized her instantly. You're Catherine Hale? She whispered. Catherine smiled. Yes, divorce attorney, women's advocate, and former victim of Jonathan Reed. Emily's breath caught. He hurt you too? Catherine nodded calmly. Years ago. Before he met you. Before he built his empire. I left before he could destroy me. Her voice softened. And I've been waiting for the day someone could help end his cycle for good. Emily swallowed hard. Why help me? Because you're strong, Catherine said simply. And because you have something I never had, a network ready to fight with you. Olivia placed a gentle hand on Emily's shoulder. We're all here because we believe in you. With help, Emily changed into the dress. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Not because she looked polished, but because she looked present, awake. She saw a woman who had endured hell and was choosing to rise anyway. Let's take you down to the consultation room, Catherine said. When they arrived, the space felt warm and safe. Wooden table, soft lighting, a vase of flowers someone had placed there. Catherine laid out the documents. This is your full protective order. This is the emergency custody filing. And this, she tapped a thicker packet, is the preliminary case to charge Jonathan with financial fraud. Emily felt her heartbeat quicken. All of this is real? It becomes real, Catherine replied. The moment you choose to sign. Emily looked down at the pages. Each line, each signature box, felt like a doorway to the life she never believed she could build. Her hand trembled slightly, but she lifted the pen Olivia offered. Her signature flowed shakily but surely across the first line, then the second, then the third. By the time she finished, tears blurred her vision, but this time they weren't from fear. They were from relief. Catherine smiled. You just changed your whole future. Emily exhaled shakily. It feels like I'm finally waking up. You are, Olivia said softly. And the world is about to see it. As they prepared to take her back to her room, Michael appeared in the hallway, holding a small notebook. Emily, he said. I got the confirmation. The evidence packet is ready. Everything is moving in your favor. Emily looked at him, really looked at him. At the steadiness in his eyes, the kindness, the quiet strength. For a moment, her heart fluttered not in fear, but in something she hadn't felt in years. Possibility. She stood straighter, holding her injured arm gently. Good, she said, voice steady. Because I'm ready. Michael smiled. And at that moment, Emily realized something powerful. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was becoming someone new. Emily returned to her hospital room feeling steadier than she had since the nightmare began. Her arm still ached, her body still tired, but her mind was sharper focused. The decisions she made with Olivia and Catherine had awakened something inside her, something that had been buried beneath fear for far too long. Now it pulsed like a quiet drumbeat. Fight back. Minutes later, Olivia entered with a laptop tucked under her arm. Catherine followed, carrying a thick binder of organized evidence. Michael brought in a portable table, setting it up at the foot of Emily's bed. All right, Olivia said, voice calm but electric. It's time to prepare the full evidence package. This is the beginning of your counterstrike. Emily inhaled slowly. I'm ready. Catherine opened the binder. We're dividing the evidence into 3 categories: financial misconduct, emotional abuse, and physical harm. Each one alone is damaging. Together, they're devastating. Michael pulled up a digital folder and turned the screen toward them. Here's the footage from JFK. I cleaned the audio, stabilized the frames, and added timestamps pulled directly from the airport's public clock display. It's irrefutable. Emily swallowed. Watching the video would hurt, but avoiding it would hurt more. Play it, she whispered. The screen lit with the familiar image. Jonathan storming toward her, Vanessa whispering into his ear, the rage twisting his face. The sound of her son crying sliced through the room. Emily flinched when the crack of her arm echoed from the speakers. Olivia reached over and touched her hand gently. Sweetheart, this isn't you reliving pain. This is you gathering truth. Emily nodded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Michael continued, but the most important part is this. He fast-forwarded to the moment Emily collapsed. Several witnesses rushed toward her. A nurse stepped forward. Phones captured every angle. This proves he didn't just lose control. He kept going even when you were clearly in distress. Catherine added, and that's crucial for the assault on a pregnant woman charge. Next, Olivia opened a folder labeled Financials. Now here's where we hit him hardest. She laid out photocopies of Jonathan's offshore transfers, fraudulent vendor accounts, and missing signatures. These numbers match the files you saw months ago. Emily stared at the pages, heart pounding. I knew it, she whispered. He told me I was imagining things. He said I misunderstood. He gaslighted you because you were right, Olivia said firmly. And men like Jonathan don't tolerate threats, not even from their wives. Michael handed Emily another document. This is the email Vanessa sent the investors. She told them Jonathan was unstable, unpredictable, and ready to implode. She wasn't protecting him. She was preparing to replace him. Emily's eyes widened. She was planning to betray him? Michael nodded. The moment she squeezed everything she needed out of him. Catherine organized printed statements from witnesses, travelers, TSA staff, even the nurse who saw Vanessa lurking near Emily's belongings before the ambulance arrived. This, Catherine said, tapping the stack, shows clear evidence of conspiracy. Vanessa helped provoke the attack and tried to interfere afterward. Emily exhaled shakily. All this, against him, against both of them, Olivia corrected. And every signature you add to this packet strengthens your case. Emily looked at the mountain of evidence spread across the table. Pages of truth, proof of everything she endured. Proof she wasn't crazy, dramatic, unstable. She was a victim who had survived. She reached for the pen. Her injured hand trembled, but her voice didn't. This ends now. She signed every page: financial affidavits, witness verifications, police statements, medical reports. Each signature felt like reclaiming a piece of herself Jonathan had stolen. When she finished, Olivia exhaled proudly. With this evidence, Jonathan won't just lose his case, he'll lose his freedom. Michael closed the laptop gently. And Vanessa won't escape either. Emily leaned back, exhausted but triumphant. For the first time, she felt the weight shifting not onto her shoulders, but off them, and somewhere deep inside her chest, a spark grew brighter. Michael closed the laptop gently. And Vanessa won't escape either. Emily leaned back, exhausted but triumphant. For the first time, she felt the weight shifting not onto her shoulders, but off them, and somewhere deep inside her chest, a spark grew brighter. She had just taken the first step toward reclaiming her life and destroying Jonathan's. Emily leaned back, exhausted but triumphant. For the first time, she felt the weight shifting not onto her shoulders, but off them. Across the table, the CFO cleared his throat. Jonathan, the footage is clear. Multiple angles, witness statements. It doesn't look staged. Jonathan's jaw tightened. She's manipulating all of you. She's trying to ruin my career. A board member leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. Your career is not our primary concern right now. Reed Global is under scrutiny. Our investors are threatening to pull out. 3 major partners want an explanation. Jonathan scoffed. So you'll believe a video over your CEO? Over a pregnant woman with a broken arm and medical records? Another board member said coldly. Yes. Jonathan felt the ground shift under him. His power, once absolute, was crumbling in real time. And then came the worst blow. Olivia has called for an emergency board vote, the CFO said, to assess your fitness to lead. Every phone in the room had already buzzed dozens of times with news alerts, the video of the airport incident spreading like wildfire across every major platform. Jonathan stormed into the temporary crisis conference room at Reed Global, his face flushed with fury and exhaustion. He had been released from questioning pending further investigation, but the humiliation lingered on him like a stain he couldn't scrub off. The board members sat scattered around the long glass table, some whispering, others avoiding his gaze entirely. Jonathan's eyes flashed. You're doing this because of Emily. I'm doing this, Olivia replied, because of your actions. Vanessa entered behind him, trying to appear invisible. Her face was pale, eyes darting. Jonathan glared. You. Say something. Tell them what really happened. Vanessa opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She couldn't save him. She couldn't save herself either. The CFO placed a folder on the table. We received a package this morning, anonymously. It contains evidence of unauthorized transfers, forged documents, and offshore accounts tied to your personal authorization codes. Jonathan's blood ran cold. Those are fabricated. No, Olivia said sharply. They match the records Emily found months ago, the ones you dismissed as misunderstandings. The board members exchanged looks uneasy, disappointed, enraged. Vanessa whispered, "Jonathan, we should go." But he didn't hear her. His chest rose and fell rapidly as the truth closed in around him. "You're suspending me?" he demanded. Olivia didn't blink. Effective immediately. Jonathan's eyes widened. Rage twisted through him, raw and desperate. "I built this company, and you nearly destroyed it," Olivia replied. The room fell silent. Jonathan suddenly lunged toward the binder on the table, flipping through pages, searching for something, anything to twist in his favor. "These signatures aren't mine. This is a setup. She's behind this." "Emily, enough," Olivia said firmly. "Your wife is recovering from trauma you caused. Your son witnessed your violence. And the entire country saw what you did." A security team appeared at the doorway. Jonathan stared at them in disbelief. "You're throwing me out? You're a liability," the CFO said. Vanessa backed away slowly, distancing herself from him as if he were contagious. Jonathan's voice cracked. "You can't do this. I still have—" "You have nothing," Olivia said quietly. "And soon you'll answer to the law." Jonathan's face contorted with rage, fear, disbelief, all clashing into one. As security led him away, he turned back toward Vanessa, expecting loyalty. But she stepped back another inch, refusing to meet his eyes. Jonathan Reed, once untouchable, was unraveling. And upstairs, unaware of the chaos she had set into motion, Emily rested with her hand over her belly, finally breathing freely. The empire that had trapped her was finally collapsing. Vanessa's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor of Reed Global's executive wing, a sound that once made her feel powerful, in control, a woman rising through the ranks with calculated precision. But today, every step echoed with dread. Her phone buzzed nonstop in her hand. Investors, lawyers, unknown numbers, all demanding the same thing. Explain, fix this, or suffer the fallout. She slipped into an empty conference room, closing the door quietly behind her. Her hands trembled as she checked the latest message. "If Reed goes down, you go down first. Don't contact us again until you've cleaned your mess." Her throat tightened. Those men had promised protection, power, leverage. They had fed her ego, made her feel irreplaceable. But now, she was radioactive, untouchable, disposable. She sank into a leather chair, gripping the armrests. For the first time in years, Vanessa felt something she had buried deep: fear. A knock startled her. Before she could react, the door opened and two internal auditors stepped in. "Miss Hale," one said stiffly, "we need your cooperation." "My cooperation?" Vanessa repeated, forcing a brittle smile. "Of course. What do you need?" The auditor laid a stack of printed emails on the table. "We're investigating your correspondence with Jonathan Reed. Specifically, the messages suggesting you provided him unauthorized access to internal accounts." Her blood ran cold. I didn't. "We also have footage," the other auditor added, "of you accessing the financial server room after hours." Vanessa's pulse hammered. "You don't understand." "Jonathan told me to. Mr. Reed says you acted alone." The words hit like a blow to the chest. Jonathan threw her to the wolves. She let out a shaky breath. He wasn't supposed to say that. We were partners." "No," the auditor said coolly. "You were his assistant." Vanessa felt something inside her crack. Before she could gather herself, Olivia appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable calm, but edged with quiet steel. "Gentlemen, I'll take it from here." The auditors nodded and exited. Vanessa stood quickly, her voice trembling. "Olivia, please, You know me. I've worked hard for this company. I've been loyal. Loyalty. Olivia's voice was soft, almost pitying. You manipulated a vulnerable woman. You encouraged violence. You helped Jonathan cover his tracks. You fed his paranoia so you could climb higher. Vanessa shook her head, tears forming. It wasn't like that, but it was, Olivia said, stepping closer. And the irony? Jonathan never valued you. The moment things went wrong, he blamed you. He gave us every detail we needed. Vanessa's breath hitched. He betrayed me, exactly the way you tried to betray Emily. Vanessa sank into the chair again, her strength collapsing. I never meant for it to go this far. Olivia paused, studying hair. Perhaps. But intent doesn't erase damage. Then Olivia placed a folder gently in front of her. This is your formal notice of immediate suspension, she said softly. Legal will contact you within the hour. And Vanessa looked up, eyes wide. You're not walking away from this without consequences. When Olivia left the room, Vanessa broke. Her polished mask shattered. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. She thought she was too smart, too strategic to ever end up like this, cornered, exposed, alone. Downstairs, as she gathered her things in a small cardboard box, co-workers whispered behind their hands. Phones recorded her walk of shame. Security escorted her through the lobby she once strutted through with pride. Each step felt like sinking. When she reached the glass exit doors, flashing lights greeted her. Police cars, reporters, cameras ready. A detective stepped forward. Vanessa Hale. She froze. You're under investigation for conspiracy, evidence tampering, and assisting in financial fraud. You'll need to come with us. Her hands trembled as they cuffed her. Wait, please, I can explain. But no one listened. Her world, once crafted so carefully, was collapsing piece by piece. And across the city, resting safely in a hospital room filled with soft lamplight, Emily breathed steadily, unaware that her enemies were falling exactly as they deserved. Vanessa, the woman who once orchestrated every move, was now watching her own life crumble. The boardroom at Reed Global had never been silent, not in all its years of cutthroat deals and high-stakes power plays. But today, the air was still. Heavy. Waiting. The Manhattan skyline glowed behind the vast glass windows, its golden reflection shimmering across the polished table where the most important decision in the company's history was about to be made. Executives filled every seat, their expressions tense, their tablets glowing with documents Olivia had sent minutes earlier. Security guards lined the walls not for show, but because today was no ordinary meeting. Today was the reckoning. The doors opened. Olivia entered first, composed and commanding, her heels tapping with measured purpose. Right behind her, moving carefully with one arm in a cast and the other resting over her pregnant belly, was Emily. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Most board members had never met her in person. They knew only the rumors: Jonathan's fragile wife, the sheltered young mother, the woman he accused of instability. But the person who stepped into the boardroom now, she wasn't fragile. She wasn't shrinking. She wasn't broken. Emily looked steady, determined, awake. Michael followed closely, carrying a secure case containing the evidence packet. Catherine, the attorney, walked beside Emily like a silent fortress. The sight of them together, a journalist, a lawyer, an executive powerhouse, and a woman who had survived brutality, shifted the room's entire energy. The board wasn't just seeing victims or professionals. They were seeing truth enter the room. Jonathan was the last to arrive. Flanked by two attorneys, and looking far less polished than usual, he walked in with a stiff posture, eyes darting between Emily and Olivia. His jaw tightened when he saw Emily sitting at the table, her expression calm but unreadable. "What is she doing here?" Jonathan hissed, pointing at Emily as though she didn't have the right to exist. Olivia's voice cut through the tension like ice. "She is here because this involves her, and because transparency is long overdue." Jonathan's laugh was brittle. "Transparency? Please. This is a stunt. She's manipulating all of you." "Sit down," one of the board members ordered flatly. Jonathan froze, stunned. He wasn't used to being commanded. He lowered himself into his seat slowly, trying and failing to keep his composure. Olivia stood at the head of the table. She clicked a remote, and the screens around the room flickered to life. Slide 1. A screenshot of the airport footage, Jonathan grabbing Emily's wrist. Slide 2. The moment her arm snapped. Slide 3. Emily collapsing on the floor. Some board members looked away. Others stared with disgust. Jonathan shot to his feet. These videos are out of context. Sit, Olivia repeated, sharper this time. He obeyed. Michael stepped forward and placed the hard drive on the table. This contains the full footage, he said calmly. Multiple angles. Original files. Time-stamped. No edits. No manipulations. Catherine spoke next. In addition to the video, we have sworn statements from 9 witnesses, including TSA staff, a registered nurse, and multiple passengers, all confirming the same thing. Slide 4 appeared medical records documenting Emily's fracture and the risk of preterm labor. Jonathan's attorney whispered urgently in his ear, but Jonathan swatted him away. "This is biased," he shouted. "She's making me look like a violent man," Catherine interrupted dryly. "You did that yourself." Another slide appeared. Offshore transfers. Missing funds. Forged authorization codes. The entire boardroom went still. One executive leaned forward. "These amounts. Are you telling us Jonathan siphoned company funds into personal accounts?" Catherine nodded. "For over a year." Jonathan's face drained of color. "Those files are fake. Emily barely understands basic finances." Emily finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but every word landed with precision. "I understood enough to know you were stealing, and enough to know you tried to destroy me when I asked questions." He was looking at a woman he no longer recognized. Her voice was soft, but every word landed with precision. One executive leaned forward. "These amounts. Are you telling us Jonathan siphoned company funds into personal accounts?" Another slide appeared, emails Vanessa had tried to delete. Jonathan lunged for the remote. "Turn that off. She's lying." Security stepped forward instantly. Jonathan stopped. His breath came in rapid bursts, his eyes wild. Rage and fear collided in his expression as he realized the truth. Everyone in that room now saw him for what he really was. Finally, Olivia addressed the board. "Based on the evidence presented," she said, "I am officially moving to remove Jonathan Reed as CEO, pending criminal investigation." A hand raised. Then another. Then another. The vote was unanimous. Jonathan collapsed back into his chair, defeated. Security placed a hand on his shoulder. Emily stood slowly, steadying herself with her good arm. For a moment, she looked at Jonathan, not with fear, not with hatred, but with closure. "This is the last time," she whispered, "you will ever hurt me." Jonathan's face twisted. Security took him by the arms. And as he was escorted out of the boardroom he once ruled, every member watched in silence. Not one defended him. Not one pitied him. His power was gone. And Emily, broken, battered, but rising, had helped take it from him. The fall of Jonathan Reed was now complete. Police lights flashed across the polished stone steps of the Manhattan District Courthouse as Jonathan Reed was escorted down the long walkway in handcuffs. Cameras clicked like rapid fire. Reporters shouted his name. His expensive suit, once a symbol of untouchable power, now looked wrinkled, defeated, and painfully small under the harsh blue lights. He tried to lift his chin, to salvage even a shred of dignity, but the weight of everything crashing down around him kept dragging his posture lower and lower. This was a man who had once believed he controlled everything: his wife, his company, his public image, every person he touched. But now the world saw him exactly as he was: a criminal, a man who abused his pregnant wife in broad daylight, a fraud who laundered millions behind corporate doors, a manipulator exposed under the very lights he used to shine under. Inside the courthouse, Olivia, Catherine, and Michael sat with Emily in a private waiting room away from the reporters. Emily's casted arm rested gently on a pillow, and her other hand lay on her stomach protectively. She looked fragile, but there was a new steel beneath her calm surface, an unshakable strength she had earned through fire. Catherine checked her watch. They should be reading the formal charges any minute. Emily swallowed. What will happen to him?" Catherine's tone was steady. "Jonathan is facing 4 separate charges: aggravated assault of a pregnant woman, financial fraud, evidence destruction, and witness intimidation. Even with the best attorney in the country, he won't walk away from all this. Michael nodded. The evidence is overwhelming. His investors turned against him. Vanessa flipped under pressure. The DA wants to make an example of him. Emily closed her eyes, breathing in slowly. He always thought he was invincible. And that, Olivia said gently, is exactly why he's falling so hard. Downstairs in the courtroom, Vanessa sat on a bench, wrists cuffed, eyes red from crying. She looked nothing like the polished, confident woman who once strutted through Reed Global with heels clicking like gunfire. She kept her head down, refusing to meet Jonathan's stare. Jonathan glared at her anyway. "You sold me out." She shook her head weakly. "You never protected me. You never intended to." Jonathan scoffed. "You were supposed to help me. We were fixing the situation. We were covering crimes," Vanessa cried. "And when the heat came, you threw me under the bus. I owed you nothing after that." Jonathan leaned forward, teeth clenched. "You're pathetic." Vanessa let out a lifeless laugh. "No, Jonathan, we're both pathetic. But I'm the one who realized it before the world did." Before Jonathan could respond, the bailiff barked, "Quiet." Back upstairs, Emily stared out the window at the gray Manhattan skyline. She felt the moment approaching, the one she both feared and needed. Michael stepped closer. "You don't have to watch the hearing if you don't want to." Emily shook her head. "I need to hear it. I need to know it's real." Her voice was soft, but grounded, determined. When the screen in the waiting room flickered on, the courtroom came into view. The judge entered, his expression stern. The room rose. "Jonathan Reed," the judge began, "you stand accused of the following crimes." Every word that followed felt like a stone lifting off Emily's chest. Aggravated assault and battery, child endangerment, embezzlement and corporate fraud, conspiracy to destroy evidence, and coercive control against your spouse. Jonathan stood stiffly, jaw locked, face pale. "How do you plead?" The courtroom held its breath. Jonathan opened his mouth. "Not goo." His attorney hissed. "Jonathan, stop." Jonathan ignored him. "Not guilty." Gasps echoed through the room. The judge's expression didn't change. "Very well. Bail is denied." Jonathan froze. "Denied? You can't deny bail. I'm not a flight risk." The judge lifted the stack of evidence. "You had offshore accounts prepared for escape. You are absolutely a flight risk." Jonathan's knees almost buckled as officers grabbed him by the arms. Vanessa watched, trembling, as the bailiff uncuffed her long enough to sign her plea agreement. She had taken a deal cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. Jonathan realized it too late. "You betrayed me," he shouted, voice cracking. Vanessa didn't look at him. "No, I finally stopped betraying myself." As officers dragged him from the courtroom, Jonathan screamed Emily's name as if she still owed him loyalty, as if she still belonged to him. Upstairs, watching everything unfold, Emily straightened her back. The sound of his voice no longer pierced her. It no longer held power. Catherine touched her arm. "He's finished." Emily exhaled shakily, tears gathering, but these tears weren't from pain. They were from freedom. Michael stepped beside her, voice gentle. "He can't hurt you anymore." Emily nodded softly, because the truth was undeniable. The man who tried to destroy her had finally destroyed himself. Emily stepped out of the courthouse lobby into the cool afternoon air, the city humming softly around her. For the first time in years, she didn't feel small beneath the towering Manhattan skyline. She didn't feel trapped or terrified or waiting for the next explosion. She felt free. Her arm was still in a cast, her body still recovering, but her spirit, bruised for so long, finally breathed again. Olivia walked beside her, offering quiet support without hovering. Catherine followed, her expression proud. And a few steps behind, Michael carried Emily's bag and stroller, watching over the small family with a gentleness that never asked for anything in return. Emily inhaled deeply. The air felt different, lighter, clean in a way she hadn't known since before Jonathan ever entered her life. "It's over," she whispered to herself. "He can't touch me anymore." Olivia smiled softly. "No, sweetheart, he can't, and he never will again." They helped Emily into the waiting car. As they drove toward the hospital to reunite with her son, Emily stared out the window at the city, passing by Central Park's bare trees, the rows of brownstones, the people bundled in coats hurrying along the sidewalks. She used to feel invisible among them. Now she felt present, awake, whole. When they arrived at the hospital, a nurse greeted Emily warmly and led her into the pediatric recovery room. Her little boy sat in a crib, busy waving a stuffed elephant in the air. The moment he saw her, he let out a squeal of joy and reached for her. Emily's heart broke open. She held him close with her good arm, breathing him in. "Mommy's here," she whispered. "Mommy's not going anywhere." The child giggled, tugging gently at her hair. Michael stood by the doorway, watching the scene with softened eyes. Something in his chest tightened, not romantic longing, not expectation, just a quiet admiration for a woman who had fought through so much darkness to give her children light. Later that evening, Olivia and Catherine said their goodbyes, promising to finalize the last filings in the morning. When the room finally grew quiet, Emily sat on the edge of the bed, her son cuddled on her lap, the warm lamplight softening the space around them. She looked up at Michael. "Thank you," she said, "for everything you did. I don't even know how to repay you." Michael shook his head gently. "You don't owe me anything, Emily. You survived. You protected your child. You stood up to a man who terrified everyone else. That's more powerful than anything I've done." She studied his face, the sincerity in his eyes, the kindness in his posture, the way he made her feel safe just by being in the room. A part of her wanted to ask why he cared so much, but she already knew the answer. Some people show up in your life because fate pushes them there. Others show up because they choose to, and Michael had chosen to again and again. "I don't know what happens next," she admitted. "That's okay," he said softly. "Healing isn't a race. It's a direction, and whatever direction you walk, I'll support you." Emily felt warmth spread through her chest, not the intense spark of sudden love, something deeper, the comfort of a steady flame, the promise of possibility. She lifted her son gently, letting him rest against her shoulder. "Maybe," she said quietly, "for the first time, I get to choose what I want." Michael smiled. "You do." Outside, the city lights shimmered across the skyline. Inside, Emily felt a sense of peace she had never known. Jonathan was gone. Vanessa was facing justice. The fear that once paralyzed her had lifted, and in its place stood a woman reborn stronger, braver, ready for a life built, not on survival but on hope. Emily kissed her son's forehead and whispered, "We're going to build something beautiful, I promise." Michael watched her with quiet admiration, and Emily realized, perhaps for the first time, she was finally free to step into a future she chose herself. And she did. So, our story has finally come to an end. And if you, my wonderful friend, are still here right now, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a way only you can understand. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength. Maybe it whispered that you deserve peace. Or maybe, just maybe, it reminded you that healing is not only possible, it is your right. Emily's journey teaches us something deeply human, that no matter how dark life becomes, we always hold the power to rise. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And that truth becomes a kind of medicine. When we reclaim our thoughts, our boundaries, our worth, the world slowly rearranges itself around our courage. Life will hurt us. People will fail us. But like the Stoics believed, what defines us is not the blow but how we rise after it. Healing doesn't mean forgetting the pain. It means choosing not to live under its shadow anymore. If this story reached you, even just a little, give this video a like, share it with someone who might need strength today, and don't forget to subscribe so we can keep walking these emotional journeys together. You're still here, and that means you're stronger than you think.